Welcome to my porch. Before we get started working today, I'm going to put on some protective clothing. Be sure to lay down some newspaper on the floor to protect your work area. And just like the floor, remember to protect your clothing too. Episode 1. Making a papier-mâché animal. The materials that you'll need to do this project are drawing paper, a pencil, scissors, newspaper, masking tape, flour, water, a bowl, white glue, a paintbrush, acrylic or tempera paint, and some protective clothing. All right, this is it. Before I start my sculpture, I'm going to do a sketch. It's good to sketch out your ideas so you know what you're doing. I'm starting by making a mark on the page and turning it into a contour line. This contour line will describe the back of the buck. I'll start making some cross contour lines as well so that I can understand the size relationship of the rib cage to the hips. I'll establish a tail, and I'll bring the contour line down into what looks like the back of an elbow of a leg. Make sure you show all the joints in your drawing and think about the joints when you're making your sculpture. If you can get the anatomy right, you'll be much more satisfied with your finished piece. When I draw the head, I'm thinking about the shape of the skull. I'm thinking about where the eye sockets and the ears will go. And then at the very end, I'll add some horns on, some antlers. Looks like a 3-point buck to me. So it's a young one, but he's eaten a lot because he's big. Now I'm massing him in. Set the drawing aside and let's start making the glue. In order to make the paste, you'll need 3 cups of water, 1 cup of flour, and 1 small bottle of Elmer's glue. Pour the water into a small saucepan. Add the flour to the mixture and spend some time stirring. At first, while you're stirring, the flour will remain clumpy. So take your time with it, stir slowly, and eventually you'll be able to work out all the clumps. You may even want to stick your hands in there and break them up with your hands. Once you've mixed the flour and water to about the consistency of milk, then add just 1 small bottle of Elmer's glue to the whole mixture. That'll help keep it sticky and a little more waterproof. If you don't have Elmer's glue, you can certainly just use flour and water. Just be aware that when it gets wet, it will come undone. Now, once I've mixed the glue in, I'm going to take this whole mixture to the kitchen and heat it up. I'm going to heat it up very slowly, stir it while I heat it up. You can see the steam coming off of it now. I've heated it. I stirred it constantly while I was heating it so that the bottom wouldn't burn. While you're stirring, you'll notice that it gets very, very thick. But if you keep stirring it, you'll notice that it loosens up a bit and becomes what's called an emulsion. Prepare some newspaper strips, about 1 inch thick, maybe a little less, and about 3 or 4 inches long. Make a stack of them for yourself. You'll need a lot of them. Let's begin the sculpture by creating a newspaper form or armature. Start by making a 3-dimensional version of the thorax or the rib cage. Okay, so I've made myself a three-dimensional version of the mass of the rib cage of the buck. It's all the way around, and it's full, and it'll dictate the size of the whole piece. So it's important that you get the first shape as large or as small as you need it to be. I was thinking about, when I did this, keep it tight. I was thinking about sort of like the shape of a gas tank on a Harley Davidson motorcycle. So the thickest part of the rib cage is up here, and then down here towards the base I can attach hips. So this is represented the torso without the hips. The hips are going to be part of the back legs, so I'm going to go ahead and make that now. But when you're working on the back legs, you take a piece of newspaper and roll it up so it's thicker in the middle and thinner on the end, like this. Put your rib cage into position, and these back legs will give you a chance to come down here to where the elbow is on the leg, and then you can start making a joint there. But we're going to tape this on Okay, hold up. The tighter that you can keep the newspaper armature, the better. Now a buck is going to have a big chest, so I'm going to make a big chest here with a massive newspaper. You can see it all the way around, and then attach it with some tape. Then I can use this portion to shape the neck and head and put it into the position that I need. Now, while you're working on this, you really want to start thinking about the gesture and the position. If you notice, I'm starting to make the mass of the head look towards me, and I'm going to make the legs in a slightly different position, similar to my drawing, similar to the drawing that I did. When you dip the newspaper strip into the paste, make sure that you get the whole strip wet. Then squeeze off the excess glue between your fingers so the paper has an even coating of paste. If you'll notice, I put my paste into a plastic container so that I can keep it in the refrigerator overnight. Paper mache strips. It's a good idea to start with the torso and work your way down into the legs. Remember to squeeze off the excess paste and use these strips as if they are marks in 3 dimensions of cross contour lines. So when you put the strips on, You're trying to go around the form and reinforce the shape. I fashioned some antlers out of little pieces of coat hanger wire. I taped them together and covered them with smaller strips of paper mache. You may wish to make a buck like this, or you may want to make a different animal that you design yourself. Remember to do your best to smooth out the surface. Okay, let's take a look at this. We've made sure that the rump of the buck has the correct muscle mass and that it's twisted a bit to capture the gesture. See, he's got his leg kicked out as if he hears something and is ready to bolt in the opposite direction. For this sculpture, I'll use two types of brown. A warm reddish brown that you can see on the left, called burnt sienna, and a cooler, darker brown called raw umber. Titanium white, bone black, and a 1-inch flat brush will do the trick. Before you get started painting, organize your color. Both browns on one end of the palette. Keep the white and the black on the other end so you have some room for mixing. There's warm brown. There's darker, cooler brown. Using them together will create a nice temperature contrast in the piece. Now, take some of the darker brown and mix a little bit of it with white. You'll recognize that this makes a tan or fawn color, just right for a lighter brown. When you use both a dark brown and a light brown, you will be able to add value contrast to the work. Before you dip a dirty brush into your white, clean the brown paint off the brush. Clean the brush again before you go from white into black. Remember to wait a day before you paint. The animal has to be bone dry. The paint will act as a sealant, and you don't want to lock any moisture inside the newspaper. Let's begin by painting the underside white. Get the chest, and you may want to bring the white up the underside of the neck. You decide how far to take the white based on how you want it to look. Put a base coat of medium brown. I mixed both of my two browns together to get this color. This is a base coat. You can add markings lighter or darker and details on your own to create the kind of buck you want. Don't forget to clean the brush. I also used a small round brush to paint eyes. You can see here how controlling the value contrast emphasizes the shift in the planes of the head. Hey, have fun with your painting. Paint it your way.